me take the wheel.
It's too fast! How could you even tell where to stop?
I can tell.
Stop.
Well, I'm back with another ranking. This time, I'll be ranking the films of filmmaker Christopher Nolan. Nolan was my favourite filmmaker as a teen, and as an adult, is still one of my favourites. His films are almost always rich in thematic storytelling and sophistication, and come with intriguing story structures and character arcs. While not all of his films are great, or even good, even his worst films come from a place of passion rather than obligation. So, park your Batmobile, Tumblr, and come inside for the Nolan ranking, starting with... So, while Nolan does have a pretty strong track record through films we'll cover later on, there are two that really miss the mark. The worst Nolan film is the only one I describe as pretentious, and the title of that film is one that you can make from the word pretentious. And that film is... Sweeten it up. Nah, just kidding, it's Tenet. Tenet is by no means a lazy film, but it feels too wrapped up in how supposedly complex and sophisticated its premise is. By the time the film finished, I remembered very little about it, mainly because none of the characters are memorable. The characters in Dunkirk are not the most interesting, but it doesn't really matter in that film, because the film isn't really about them. The film is about the Dunkirk evacuation. It's the story of Dunkirk. Tenet is very much a character-driven story, and while the performances are fine, they're not working with memorable characters. On a side note, this is Michael Caine's final time working with Nolan, and he's unfortunately rather underused. Speaking of Nolan films with Michael Caine. So, Nolan's only other bad film. It's one that kind of sums up the events of the film, but sadly not the quality. And that film is The Dark Knight Rises. The film isn't awful, and it has its fair share of saving graces. The performances are good all around, with Anne Hathaway adding to the badass nature of newcomer Selina Kyle. The best performance for me would be Michael Caine, who really showcases the emotion in Alfred's expressions and line deliveries, possibly even improving on his already superb acting in the first two films. I also like the scene in which Alfred reveals he'd hoped Bruce wouldn't return to Gotham at the end of his training, instead wanting him to have moved forward in life and lived a happy life away from Gotham. And while the ending raises a ton of questions, seeing Alfred witness Bruce doing exactly what he'd hoped gives it a spark of poignancy. I don't mind the decision for Bruce to retire as Batman following the events of The Dark Knight, as he became a wanted criminal due to taking the fall for Harvey Dent's crimes, and also due to the guilt he felt over not being able to save Rachel, who died in part because of her connection to Batman. That said, his return to vigilantism is underwhelming as a whole, partly because we see a lot of Bruce, but very little Batman. Speaking of Harvey Dent, it seems weird that Gotham continues to mourn him for 8 years after his death, considering that he was simply a politician. The film becomes more and more underwhelming as it goes on. While I don't blame Tom Hardy for this, he wasn't the right choice for Bane, especially given that he's shorter and less muscular than Christian Bale, which makes Bane being able to easily beat Batman all the less believable. And the voice sounds like Patrick Stewart doing a Yoda impression.
So back to die with your city. Are you okay?
But at least he seems like an intelligent man.
Oh, I seem intelligent. How lovely of you to say.
On the topic of Bane, we get the scene when he reveals the truth about Dent. This is Nolan's first film to use both 185:1 and 239:1 aspect ratios, and it most notably comes off as jarring during these crosscuts, when James Gordon listens to Bane reveal the truth about Dent, and it constantly jumps between the 239:1 ratio with Gordon and the 185:1 ratio with Bane, even though both are focusing on dialogue and or characters reacting to something. What's more, we never see how anyone reacts to the news other than Gordon, so it doesn't mean anything. But on the topic of Nolan-related films and or scenes that do mean something. Following, Christopher Nolan's first film, and yeah, it shows. The script and acting are quite good overall. There's an intriguing story built up, with a lot of suspense and twists that carries a good message about not getting caught up with strangers, or in the criminal world. And it's performed quite well by the actors. But, as mentioned, this is Nolan's first film, and made on a $6,000 budget, so I can't say I was expecting anything mind-blowing. And yeah, the technical aspects are more of a mixed bag overall. But then there's Nolan movies that are very much not a mixed bag in terms of technical aspects. Interstellar is a really good film. It can be a bit too slow and tedious at times, but for the most part, I really liked its themes, performances, and technical aspects. My god, are the effects outstanding. I also think the use of different aspect ratios works in the film's favour, using 185:1 for shots focusing on the atmosphere, and 239:1 for shots focusing on characters and or dialogue. The film picks up for me in the 30-minute mark, with Cooper having to leave his daughter behind, unsure as to when he'll see her again. It's a very sad moment, and you want to see him find a way to see her again, even as he leaves Earth and receives video messages surrounding his children growing older, which he sadly doesn't get to witness in person. And Matthew McConaughey's performance especially sells the emotion of these scenes. And speaking of superb performances, Insomnia is built up in such a suspenseful and intense way. Al Pacino is fantastic in the leading role, really representing Will Dormer's insomnia due to his guilt about accidentally killing his colleague. Robin Williams goes against type by playing a serious villain, and he's also very good in this, showcasing that he was great at playing serious heroes and also serious villains. Speaking of good villains, what starts off as a good movie gradually progresses into a great one with The Prestige. Watching two enemy magicians trying to one-up each other and bring the other down through their mysterious magic tricks is a great and suspenseful story, leading to a pretty amazing twist regarding the main trick that one of them had up their sleeve. And Nolan has certainly had other great films up his sleeve, some even featuring actors from this one. Batman Begins is a great first installment. A more realistic take on Batman, it reboots his backstory and what leads to him becoming the Caped Crusader, and in a pretty amazing way. While I initially wasn't the hugest fan of Christian Bale as Batman, I did always think he was good. This time around, I think he's great. Not necessarily as good as Ben Affleck or Michael Keaton, but still pretty strong in the role. Yeah, the voice he does for Batman is terrible, but otherwise, he does come off as quite threatening. And Bruce Wayne has a strong arc over the course of the film, initially bent on killing Joe Chill's revenge, before being talked out of it, and developing a moral compass in not killing or using guns. Most of the other performances in the film are very good too. The only performance I don't like is Katie Holmes as Rachel Dawes. Her lack of range or genuine emotion makes me glad that she turned down reprising the role in The Dark Knight. Before playing the Destroyer of Worlds, Cillian Murphy played the intended Destroyer of Gotham in this film, and there it successfully showcases Scarecrow's psychopathic tendencies. Everyone raves about Heath Ledger's scary portrayal of the Joker in The Dark Knight, and rightfully so, but Murphy's performance across the films is quite overlooked. And speaking of Nolan's collaborations with Murphy, it's kind of hard to believe that this is Nolan's first director nomination, but it's certainly a warranted one, and this film was a warranted Best Picture nominee. While I can understand someone not liking the film due to the characters being pretty one-note, it doesn't really matter to me, because Dunkirk is not about the characters. Dunkirk is about, and the story of, Dunkirk, told from the perspectives of land, sea and air, which is a well-executed structure. Rather than mainly relying on character interactions, Dunkirk uses cinematography and music to create its tension, and these aspects are phenomenal. If this is the last time Hans Zimmer scores a Christopher Nolan film, then what a score for him to finish their collaborations on. And let's just say, Zimmer has cooked with many other Nolan film scores. I want Christopher Nolan to perform Inception on me, so I'll understand how he keeps coming up with such genius movies. Inception is a film that really plays with your mind. In my case, so much that it blew it with how brilliant it was. The concept of entering other people's dreams to implant ideas is such a smart concept, yet one of such complexity that even the characters themselves have to try and comprehend how it all works. And with the execution, we get amazing action scenes, a genuine amount of suspense, and some real poignancy as Leonardo DiCaprio's character Dom Cobb has to prevent memories of his wife's death from intervening with the many layers of dreams, and try to make peace with his indirect involvement in her death. Speaking of films about involvement in death, Oppenheimer, Nolan's Best Picture and Best Director winning movie. At the time of me writing this, I finished my rewatch not too long ago, and I'm just absolutely fucking mind blown. I did take down notes as I went along though, so when I can process and put together my thoughts in full, I will. Okay, let's go. Oppenheimer is a fantastic film. Something that really impresses me about the film is how, even though it's based on a true story, it manages to utilize a nonlinear narrative that not only doesn't take away from the story, but improves it. I recommend going into this film without knowing too much about the true story, because that way, the twists and revelations will be more effective. The music aids the narrative structure in how it builds up the tension between the back and forth time jumps and the development of the atomic bomb. The cast are fantastic, with Cillian Murphy in particular knocking it out of the park as J. Robert Oppenheimer, and, along with the editing and visuals, really showcases Oppenheimer's initial concentration on science, which later changes to a sense of guilt and probable insomnia when realizing what the atomic bomb is truly capable of, how he's destroyed the world, and how there's no going back. Robert Downey Jr. is also brilliant as Louis Strauss, and effectively showcases the turn of events that influence Strauss' decisions later on in the film. mainly regarding a conversation that he believed happened between Oppenheimer and Einstein. I like how the film doesn't show Oppenheimer delivering the "I am become death" speech, but rather shows him saying it in a voiceover during the Trinity test, and why he uses this grammar, a translation from an ancient Sanskrit scripture. On that note, the Trinity test scene is absolutely incredible, and very effective in the initial lack of sound in the explosion, before Oppenheimer's
"And now I am become death"
voiceover, and then the explosion sounds! And speaking of incredible technical aspects, on a technical level, the film employs all kinds of groundbreaking effects, from the town exploding, to the town literally closing in, to the spinning hallway. Now this is a great use of effects. And it's also superbly shot, edited, and scored, which adds to the tension of many scenes in the film. I don't have a lot to say about most of the performances, mainly because, as mentioned, they're not the focus. Although I will say Cillian Murphy plays the shivering soldier very convincingly. This is his 5th film with Nolan, and his 2nd non-Dark Knight one, and I honestly hope they keep working together. I do think it's interesting to see Harry Styles' film debut. This is the first Nolan film I saw on the big screen, back when I had just finished my GCSEs, and one of my classmates messaged me and asked if Harry was amazing and if he looked fit. That was certainly something. I will say it's funny how Styles' film debut, in regards to storytelling, is told from more than one direction. The cinematography is brilliant, with the darkly lit shots providing contrast that not only makes it visually appealing, but also easy to make out what's happening on screen. Then again, most Batman films succeed at this. As well as being emotionally gripping, the film is also very funny when it wants to be.
Where are you?
And while Bruce and Alfred have a touching relationship, Alfred is also capable of being funny.
What is the point of all those push-ups if you can't even lift a bloody log?
We've had a bad Batman, but we've yet to have a bad Alfred. Big up Michael Caine's performance here. And speaking of superb performances, the cast are all superb, with Christian Bale showcasing a sense of suspicion in the secrecy and subtlety of his character's tricks. But Hugh Jackman stands out the most for me, brilliantly showcasing Robert Angier's range of emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, determination, you name it. With Andy Serkis playing a supporting role, this makes 2 films he did with Jackman in 2006, both an animated one and a live-action one. I love the way this film is shot and edited, adding to the atmosphere and the occasional uncertainty as to what time of day the film is taking place at. But the ending we get to is a fantastic ending, and while I don't want to give too much away, it provides a symbolic, though not ideal, solution to Dormer's Insomnia. And speaking of fantastic endings, the last 20 minutes are where the film becomes phenomenal, with a high amount of emotional depth and mind-blowing effects to boost. I don't want to give away too much, but we get a highly emotional conclusion to a relationship between 2 characters, and an ending that gives a sense of hope for what will happen after the end of the story. The sound mixing can be slightly jarring at times, such as when the blonde is describing the guy in depth being tortured by the bald guy, and the scream sounds like something out of a YouTube video. The scene itself also feels kind of staged in how the bald guy hammers his fingers. It kind of looks like he's just lightly tapping them. Similarly, a later scene in which the young man knocks over pots and pans sounds like a distorted scream, as does the scream the blonde lets out near the end. But where everything really falls apart is in the 3rd act. The action scenes are at their most laughable here. I don't think I need to explain why. But then we get this exchange between Bane and Batman when the latter returns to Gotham.
So you came back to your city?
I came back to you.
Then we get Bale's Batman voice at its most laughable, when he keeps yelling,
Where is it? Where is it?
at Bane. But at least it comes with this line from Batman.
Tell me where the traitor is. Then you have my permission to die.
This is a good counter to Bane's line to him earlier in the film.
We will destroy Gotham. Then you have my permission to die.
And then we find out that Tate, a character who is played as a heroine, is actually the mastermind. Not only does it completely undermine Bane, oh, my mistake, he's a tool, but it also raises the question as to how Batman didn't realise it. And both of their deaths are the most anticlimactic shit ever.
We did 20 ticks, and that was the best one.
Then Batman uses the bat to dispose of the bomb. Some days you can get rid of a bomb, and is presumed dead, along with Bruce also being presumed dead. Damn, Nolan actually went ahead and killed... Oh wait, Bruce is still alive. How is Bruce, a famous billionaire, able to spend the rest of his life walking around unnoticed. Are you really telling me not one person would stop and think, hang on, isn't he dead? It'd honestly make more sense if Bruce was correctly presumed alive, and thus Bruce could live solely as Bruce without raising any suspicion. We also learn that police officer John Blake, a character who didn't get enough character development or training over the course of the film, receives a package from Bruce leading him to the Batcave. Oh, and his legal first name is Robin. Bit of an underwhelming revelation, to be honest, and makes you wonder if he really was the right person to follow in Batman's footsteps. There's nothing wrong with complex stories. Hell, this is what Nolan is known for. But with Nolan's other films, I could tell you what they're about. Memento is about a man trying to use receipts to help him find his wife's killer. Inception is about a man trying to perform a task of entering other people's dreams. Interstellar is about astronauts trying to find a new home for mankind. As a whole, these films are by no means simple, but their concepts are ones that are easy to describe in vague summary. With Tenet, to give you an idea of what the film is about, I'd have to read the Wikipedia plot summary. The film follows a former CIA agent who is recruited into a secret organisation tasked with tracing the origin of objects that are travelling backward through time and their connection to an attack from the future to the present. I'm getting confused just reading that. The film is also heavy on exposition through dialogue, yet I can't remember or absorb a single line from the film. On a technical level, Tenet is pretty great, and the acting is good overall, but the script itself comes off as overly convoluted and pretentious. Fortunately, however, Nolan has proven himself to be a great filmmaker, and while we do have one more bad film to talk about, we will then journey to the films that range from good to great. Unless, of course, we've already partly, or mostly, done that. Not an awful film, but a disappointing end to a once great franchise. But at least Nolan never tried to milk it after this. So, while it's definitely not one of Nolan's masterpieces, it's still a good movie overall. And if made later on in Nolan's career, it would likely rank higher on the list. A good start overall. While I don't love the film as a whole, I do think it's a very good movie. I've seen it twice now, and maybe the third viewing will be the one where I come to believe it's a great movie. Only time will tell. While it's Nolan's only film he didn't write, his direction very much contributes to another great movie of his. Another well-made, written, and acted masterpiece from Nolan. Overall, a new take on Batman's origin story, and certainly a welcome one. Overall, an incredibly well-made film that stands out amongst other war films, primarily for its structure. I could talk about the ending and my interpretation of it, and I think I will. Seeing as Leo's wife in this film is over 25, the entire film was a dream. Of the 2023 films I've seen, I'd say Oppenheimer deserved Best Picture, and that's saying something given that there's two better films to talk about. Now this is a phenomenal film. It's probably pointless explaining why Heath Ledger is so brilliant as the Joker, but I can't not go over it. Ledger was out of this world as the Joker, making him a genuinely scary and realistic threat to others, while also managing to nail the sadistic sense of humour of the character, as you'd expect from a character called the Joker. Ledger, along with the Nolans, brought a perfect balance in the Joker's intimidation and sadistic sense of humour. The scene in which the Joker blows up the hospital even comes with that improvisation from Ledger, in which he humorously reacts to not all the explosives going off, only to then flee when they do. As a whole, The Dark Knight, to an even higher extent than Batman Begins, is a comic book film that rejects the common comic book movie style in favour of being a crime drama that features realistic takes on comic book characters. And the execution is brilliant, with the realistic setting and themes bringing that scary reminder that not everyone can be reasoned with. And, as Alfred puts it,
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
And, while the Joker does get Batman to break his no-killing rule when Batman is forced to kill Harvey Dent to save James Gordon's family, Batman wants the city of Gotham to maintain hope by taking the fall of Harvey Dent's crimes, as to let the people believe that Dent died a hero and maintain a society that continued to see the good in humanity. It leaves you wondering whether or not the Joker truly wins in the end. With a variety of underlying and well-executed themes addressing moral boundaries, terrorism, vigilantism, and hope that all come together into a thought-provoking masterpiece, The Dark Knight, while not perfect, is the greatest superhero film I've ever seen. And yet, I wouldn't call it the greatest Nolan film.
You must
Now this is a masterclass in non-linear storytelling, and also just making a phenomenal film in general. Memento has been one of my favourite films since I first watched it as a teen. Revisiting it for this video, it's even better. I would say I'm lost for words, but for the sake of analysis, I'd rather not. A film that, while likely to be very confusing and requires a lot of attention at all times, rewards you with a mind-blowing payoff, as Leonard tries to find the killer of his wife, keeping receipts of events that have happened since, through notes, Polaroids, and tattoos. As we go along, we learn a variety of twists and revelations that would not be nearly as impactful if told chronologically. And the ending voiceover? Amazing. I also like how not everything is explicitly answered. I don't want to ruin the film, as I'd like for people to go in completely blind and let this mind-blowing viewing experience seep into your head as you watch it. But you can ponder so many things regarding Leonard's search when you finish the film. It's always been one of my favourite films, and hopefully it'll be one of your favourites too. Watch it if you haven't already.